Be younger, you know that.
Okay. I'm not that young.
Right, we are good.
All right, I want to bring the meeting to order. I'm Don Burby, 135 River Road.
Mike Wayne, select board rep.
Carrie Mackinnon, Community Development Director.
Adam Sandall, 980 Drive. David Glazier. Kim McDaniel, 117 Drive.
Sandy Crystal on Shoreview Drive.
All right, so we're gonna move right into public hearings. Consideration of placing the following amendments to the zoning ordinance on the town warrant. We already done a few of these, so, to amend section 7.10 radio TV towers for antenna and personal wireless service facilities, also known as PWSF, to allow PWFS's up to 190 feet in height, and to modify the language regarding stealth technology. You wanna present some?
Yeah.
All right.
So at the last time we reviewed this, we talked about how we changed the max height from 90 feet to 190. I sent this to town council for review, and he tweaked our to the extent feasible language. Made it a little wordier, but I think that's what we expected when we sent it to council. So,
What did you change?
so everywhere I said to the extent feasible, he mostly said, unless the planning board determines that such technology would not be feasible or otherwise inconsistent with the purposes of this ordinance.
Do that everywhere?
Yep.
lot
It's just in lawyer speak
A
now.
lot of words.
Yeah, it is. The other item that he added, so the height of any structure will be the minimum necessary in order to transmit and receive commercially feasible transmissions. And he added at the end, and close identified gaps in coverage. So that kind of helps.
Yep.
Say what you say.
Right, so if there isn't an identified gap in coverage, that wouldn't be justification to put a big tower in, like if it's just commercial. Yeah, so that makes-
Exactly.
that's good.
And then you've got that same. The only under location prioritization, number 3. So before it had A, B, C, and D, and it's supposed to be like a ranked priority. So starting with A, the ideal would be concealed or camouflage within an existing building or structure. Then if you can't do that, you move to B, which is on or within a new building or structure. And then C, the co-location. And then D talked about on a new facility, and then it goes into the camouflaging and stealth technologies. And he felt that that just really didn't even belong there at all. And he removed that letter D entirely because we covered the stealth technology and camouflage a lot elsewhere. And then where under 5C, where it talks about lighting. So it already said towers shall not be artificially lighted unless required by the FAA or other applicable authority. If lighting is required, the governing authority may review the available lighting alternatives and approve the design that would cause the least disturbance to the surrounding views. And then I added, or require that the tower be built at a lower height that would not require lighting to the and then the attorney added, to the extent that such lower height would not result in an effective prohibition on the provision of wireless telecommunication services. So I think he threw that in to protect the town too.
Telecommunications Act.
Exactly.
What,
Oh, Telecommunications Act, probably what triggered that comment.
So you can't have an ordinance that would effectively prohibit the wireless, you can't have a ordinance that says basically you can't put a tower in. So if by saying you can't have a tower unless it's lit means that they can't effectively
Isn't that
provide
why we're
services.
90 feet too? Okay.
that was all the changes there.
I have a couple of. I know that this is public hearing, so I don't know, but the word co-location, I don't know what it is spelled in most places with 2 L's. And it's really a hyphen location, like actually 3C. Says on existing PWSF, it says co-location. It doesn't have to be hyphenated, but it doesn't need to have 2 L's.
Where does it have 2 vowels?
Oh, like in about 5 places.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
2A, D, 4,
Oh, yeah.
Not
6,
a word.
Yeah, it should be code.
co-location. And then,
Maybe, I don't know.
no, well, I looked it up and.
Okay, I was like, that doesn't.
I mean,
look
the
right.
thing is that the word is to co-locate, and it's only 1 L there.
Right.
The only other thing is, 7A, we say natural vegetation is preferred. I'd say native, because I don't know what natural means. I know we reviewed this before, so
That should be native.
So
It is a word, but I don't think it's a word that we want.
curious if we had in
That means existing.
well, that's one of the issues with the word natural.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much
It
all
doesn't-
vegetation is natural, it just might not naturally belong there.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
just gonna look up, so our definition of co-location is spelled that way, and it says as defined in RSA 12K. So I just want to see how it's spelled in the RSA. I don't know. So I will just remind everyone, so this is the final public hearing. So only no substantial changes that affect the,
Right.
I mean, we can change spelling, we can grammar, things like that, but we
natural
can't.
to native,
I think that's
that's
borderline probably,
Yeah.
I think, to the
Hmm.
sorry, I just
I think.
co-location, it's direct from the RSA.
Really?
100%.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of says with bad English, bad grammar.
I guess we leave it.
I think I mean, it's in the RSA, that's it.
So we define that word in the RSA to be the same as co-location.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we get it defined.
Okay.
Anything else from the board? Well, this is a public hearing, if you got some comments on cell tower height.
You know, but can I add
Oh,
one more
yeah.
piece of background or context?
Okay.
When I sent this to the town's attorney, I told him about the RF engineering plan that is hopefully going to be happening soon, and he was very glad to hear that and would be happy to assist in a more comprehensive overhaul of this
Mhm.
section of the ordinance after we have the RF study.
Wouldn't be able to happen until next.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But he felt that these changes made sense to do this now, so we make some changes, and then after we have the RF study in place, he could assist with an overhaul. So,
Anything else? All right. And we're back to the public side here. Actually, could you just state your name and address?
These changes, okay, done by the zoning board of adjustment, done by the town.
They were done basically here with review assistance from the town attorney.
The zoning board of adjustment.
No, the planning board.
Oh, the zoning board doesn't have zoning.
No,
It's the zoning board. If they don't have zoning board.
Here appeals to the decisions made by the planning board.
So these changes, were they written up by, you said by the town attorney?
Yeah, they're all.
So as staff, I started with some recommendations based on conversations with the planning board, and then we've brought them to the planning board for their review a few times, and then it went to the town's attorney for a final review, I guess.
No. There was thought that the town's attorney had someone on board that was familiar with the telecommunications
Yep.
law and all this,
Yes.
would help with those zoning changes.
Mhm.
Now, is there an extra fee or charges for that, or is that something the town attorney does for free?
Nothing's for free.
Nothing's for free, but I think I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure our town attorney is on retainer. I mean, everything's gonna go before the town attorney. You know, we're not, the town's not gonna pinch pennies on getting, let's just put what we think and not, it's gonna save us from getting sued hopefully later is the idea of reviewing to make sure you have it legally right.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
How these changes all came about. Something you have to pay for, or something that happens among the board? You guys-
Well, we all work for free, so. Yeah. I don't think there was any, extravagant cost of, getting this done.
I would say at the most, it was probably an hour of the attorney's time.
I mean, all these changes are gonna help, anything's gonna help.
Just the other thing I'd add is this is, every year at this time, we go through a process where, we look to amend anything that warrants amendment, usually governed by, or not governed by, but influenced by what we've experienced over the last year, right? So a couple years ago, there was a bunch of subdivisions. We made a bunch of changes to the open space regulation because that was a problem in administering those. And the other thing would be staff looks at the rules all the time and says, hey, this isn't clear. That's not clear. This could be improved. That could be improved. So this is a routine process.
And
No surprises, it's
changes
just
from the
dealt with
state as
this.
well, so like the wetlands, we
Sure.
got input from the state on the wetland. To make those modifications to be in line, so.
Yeah, so why this provision? I think it's pretty obvious. We spent a lot of time on this in the last year. It went. And it could definitely be improved.
Anybody else?
Hi, Andy, but we're looking over on two height limitations. Why are we picking 100 that for the other?
Generally, anything 200 feet and over needs to be lit. FAA regulations, if it's over 200 feet, it has to have a light. Under 200 feet could require a light, but generally depending on where it is. But if it's over 200 feet, it definitely needs a light.
Well, that answers question number two. Is 190 feet away.
The prior,
Depending on location.
the prior requirements were at a lower height. So the way that the prior zoning regulations were written were in line with what the regulations were previously for requirements for the light. And those have since changed. And so.
Anybody else? Come back to board. Anybody? Ready for a motion? Oh, yeah, so I'm gonna close the public hearing. Oh, I guess I'm opening the public hearing for another moment. So
Just one question. In regard to.
So it hasn't happened yet. The telecommunications committee reviewed the bids just earlier this week. And I think at the next board of selectmen meeting, they'll be making some decisions about how to move forward with that and funding that. So the RF plan hasn't occurred yet, but it is
And-
moving forward.
And this is the last meeting that we could get anything done before town meeting. So this has been our deadline on the height, which is the biggest, is a big part of it. So we'll be here next year doing this too.
You won't restrict the RF.
The whole thought was we would make as much improvement to what is currently in place and make those modifications. And then depending on what comes out of those findings, incorporate those into next year's warrant article, potentially, like depending on what comes out of it and what is determined.
May not be any changes.
It may not, or there may be, we will go through this exact same process to look and review and see what we would make as far as modifications for next year based off of that.
Anybody else? Got another on that list, Jeff?
This is for them. Next select board meeting, they will decide. Equal pay for chosen bid. What's the plan is?
All right, and I'm gonna close the public hearing. What do we got? I don't think so. Right, we got,
There's six, you know,
what's that?
there's six without.
Then you are voting.
I'll make a motion to place on the warrant. And then amending section 7.10 radio TV tower antenna and personal wireless service facility to allow PWSFs up to 190 feet height and to modify the language regarding stealth technology.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. There's one on the warrant. All right, moving right along, F, to amend 10.01 wetland conservation WC district sections D and E.
So we talked about this last time. And I don't believe Sandy was here last time, so if you want to give any other background to why we did what we did. The only thing that changed since the last time we met was under E, the table of uses for the wetland conservation district. Under activities incidental to ordinary residential use, etc. It is now not permitted in the prime wetlands, but permitted in wetlands, prime wetland buffers and wetland buffers.
Did you with that the last?
But you were.
Well, I was at the last, but I don't.
But not the
think
one
just-
where we took
where
out
we
the
got-
specified,
Yeah,
yeah.
the one prior to that.
Yeah. Other things were just some language cleanup, I would say. We talked about how under D, how we talked about, we took out the word vernal pool because couldn't have a man-made vernal pool. And we added currently use as such to refer to the excavated agricultural irrigation or fire ponds. The other changes that we talked about in that table of uses, and then Sandy corrected some of the references in the footnotes.
Any questions? All right, I'm gonna open this up to the public. If anybody comments, questions, or
Any quick remarks on, table of wetland improvement culvert, like recommend we should create state regulated.
Actually, there isn't a state buffer to prime wetlands. It's only for a certain wetlands, certain prime wetlands that were adopted within a certain window of time. Because the state wetlands law changed a few times, and only those that were in this little window get that 100 feet. So actually the state has no prime wetland buffer currently for most communities with prime wetlands.
Yeah, but I've heard that a bill buffer, we do a bill buffer.
Well,
It's not RSA 42.811 says 100. If there isn't, I'll then recommend 0 buffer. Or, to be, let's say 50 feet then, at least give some buffer.
Do you have any justification for why it should be reduced?
Yes, I own 64 acres in the town of Bow. If I apply current, if I put in a current just roads and things and came up with what I need to do, I developed 48 acres. If I apply the current wetland regulations to it, I have 12 buildings. 900. Justification is that basically without any payment, or anything from the state, basically stolen land from anybody that has any land around prime wetlands. And restrict landowners.
Why do you, I'm trying to get at why do you think that they're random, or why do you think that the distance, I mean, the buffer is there to protect the prime wetlands. Why do you?
It's been as an arbitrary number. That's wetlands. That's Sandy. People will give you. It was 25 feet is more than enough as a buffer by scientists. I thought 100 feet is what the regulation said. Now Sandy's telling me there isn't. I would prefer as a landowner to have nothing. If it's 25 feet, I guess we can accept that to not disturb wetlands. About 100 is less, would at least help a little bit. Still not an issue. So in the case, we are taking land from landowners with no justification. For no reason at all. We're not taking something at 150 feet, 100 feet. It's excessive.
there's a huge body of research about wetland buffers. You can check on the New Hampshire Association of Natural Resource Scientists. They did some research. Actually, they did a lot of literature reviews. So they've reviewed other people's things. You can, there's a huge amount of information from the US Department of Agriculture, Chesapeake Bay, a lot of places. There was a buffer options for the bay that was done for the seacoast area that talks about buffers, and there are while the different purposes of buffers may have different distances. Basically, 100 feet has been like the minimum, and then there's a lot that if you talk about providing habitat for wildlife, it's actually much larger on the water quality end. You know, the 100 feet or whatever is considered adequate, but then it also depends on things like slope. So there is a lot of justification. There's a lot of research out there, and hence the buffers that have been established. 150 feet was established quite a number of years ago.
Okay.
And
It's from the
I was
beginning.
gonna ask, we're not suggesting changing this. When was this one?
Right.
It was from 1990 when the original Wetlands Conservation District was established.
And there's no buffer requirement. I mean, we have 150 feet as a buffer.
Well,
Well, we have, right? I mean, we're not
We
changing anything.
we're using our,
Well, Sandy just said there's no wetland. buffer.
okay, but we're using our municipal, the authority that's granted to municipalities to have a wetland conservation district because it's part of zoning. And that is how we have the authority to establish buffers. It doesn't matter just because the state basically doesn't have the resources to enforce, to go after buffers, which is really one of the stumbling blocks for getting the state to have buffers, because it would be a lot more work for them to enforce. It is under the municipal authority that we can use research and existing information that fulfills the purpose of protecting water quality and other things that the Wetland Conservation District aims to do.
So under eminent domain, you're supposed to pay fair market value for taking building property. In this case, you're taking $2.7 million.
No, we're not doing that now. We're not changing any distances now. These are there. You know, so back in 1990, did you say we put it in? So anyways, 33 years ago is when they took your land.
I haven't followed up on.
They didn't take it because until you seek a permit for it, it certainly isn't taken, and it
I
can,
know there's a.
it's appropriate for
saying
other
for his-
purposes.
When it was.
When my initial review of this, looking at this came up in 1990 when I did it, it was a newspaper article issue. It wasn't a notification like tonight where we have a public hearing to say, hey, you got 64 acres. We're going to take basically 2/3 of your land with a wetland permit. Do you have an issue with that? I don't know if my father or my grandmother came in. I just know that now I'm looking at it going, there's an issue. I've talked to multiple wetland scientists. They go, yeah, we're a little excessive in our buffer zone.
So- Here's some of my advice. 'Cause, you know, what we're changing is the table of uses is getting
I
modified.
know, I would make a recommendation.
So, you know, to have some good backup, I mean, it would be a good thing to start, say, October, November. You know, to have something, you know, to bring it back to town warrant to change that. I mean, if we wanted to change these numbers now, nothing would make it to warrant. Cause this is the final meeting.
We can't change it tonight.
No,
Okay, go ahead. All right, any other?
no, I mean, the only thing that could happen tonight is, you know, not putting this on the warrant. But we can't change content with the exception of
Can I ask you a
spelling
question?
corrections.
Second.
Can I ask you a question?
Who enforces wetlands protection? The federal government, the state government?
No, well, which laws?
Right, so if
If it's the
the
wetland
town
cons-
of Bow said, we don't think there should be any buffer, what would happen? What could happen? Would an authority come in and say?
No,
you
there's
can't
no,
no, they don't.
nobody. Okay,
At all?
Because that's decided by the municipality if they want to have wetland buffers or if they want to have prime wetland established or designate certain wetlands as prime
There's no
wetlands.
legal requirement to protect.
yeah, if also if the wetland was more of a water body like Turry Pond, you have the Shoreland Protection Act that comes in and looks at activity within 250 feet
Right.
of the water. Basically, what they call the reference line and stuff. So that's for certain bodies of water, which in this town is like the Merrimack River and Turry Pond.
Turkey River?
Oh, Turkey River too, yes. Mhm, yes.
Do any of the brooks also classify that?
So fourth order stream.
Yeah, it'd be a fourth order stream. I don't
know
think
the
White
Turkey
Brook is-
River qualifies. There's a list. Sure, that would be.
And if they got white brook on through the property, 55.
I don't think.
I mean, is that a prime wetland, what he's,
His property is,
I guess if there is interest among the board, it's something I can make note of and bring it back up next season, when we take this up again. If not, then if
I
any
guess
residents
so.
want to bring it up again
guess
next
I would
year, they're
be-
welcome to.
I would be interested in what other municipalities if they've designated prime wetlands, what those buffers are.
Yeah, there's a large range, but yeah,
There's a
I have,
list
I have some of that information.
Yeah, I've came across a list, I think, actually.
I think it would be good to look at again. So, and what's just the second public hearing on this? The first one, you can make some more substantial changes,
I don't miss that one.
and, but this one here is,
That's fine. I just bring it up now. I understand. Yeah, the second one was why.
For which ones?
Was it explained who was-
Well, the thing is that we, anytime, somebody puts in a culvert or, so, there are a lot of situations where this is what the, Wetland Conservation District and conditional use process allows under certain circumstances, you know, if there's a need and such. So we've been permitting things or allowing things, even though you know, there was a mix of things in this table that didn't seem to make sense, and prohibiting the erection or construction of structures didn't seem to be kind of consistent with other things.
No, I would just
that were-
add, makes it more permissible.
Yes, it
Right.
does.
They were, I think all the things that the Cs were added were things that were not
Not-
permitted.
Were right
How you could do it with a.
with a
with
conditional use permit.
So basically, it's a process of going through and revising the table to either take out stuff that no longer makes sense and striking it, or making modifications, as David just said, where you're changing it from being more restrictive to now it can be a conditional use. Versus before with those dashes that you saw in there, that was not permitted.
I thought it was putting.
No.
you know, the little dash line means no. All right, anybody else from the public? With that, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Anything else on the board?
Make a motion to amend NDOT for one wetlands conservation district sections D and E and add it to the warrant.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I say. All right. D. To replace Article 17, Bow Mills Mixed Use District in its entirety.
Yes. There were a couple of additional changes we talked about at the last meeting about what they were. Yeah.
Change
There is two sections.
Yes.
Right, so under purpose, we said that everything can be waived except the permitted uses. And previously it said the permitted uses or the dimensional requirements. So this, the way it's currently worded, would allow the planning board to waive pretty much anything except the allowable uses. And even the permitted uses includes an item that says other innovative uses, which is kind of a so overall, it gives the planning board a lot of authority to allow flexibility.
Did the town council review this?
Don't believe
Ooh.
they have. So I was working with, that was Stu Arnett from
From the municipal association.
his own, it's the Arnett
his own.
Development Group. Yeah,
Uh,
so he's the main, and then it was also reviewed by, Central New Hampshire Planning Commission.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yes.
So, cause I guess my only question is with the grant authority, the planning board, is it too broad under the RSA?
It's legal.
In other words,
It is legal. It is a lot of authority to the planning board, and that's,
but that's
that'll be for the
permitted.
vote, that'll be for the voters to decide.
fair. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I just have one kind of clerical typo, but in, Roman numeral 5A1, when you have a minimum of basically half an acre, it would be helpful to write it as 0.5.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. 'Cause that's a
Yeah.
perfectly acceptable type of amendment for tonight. Thank you, Sandy.
That matches, yeah, some of the
Yeah, yeah.
ratio.
No, that looks a
yeah.
lot better. You're right, right.
We made the adjustment to the setbacks too. That was
Yes.
the other thing that we changed.
Yes. thank
So
you.
we
I didn't
modified the
block
setbacks for the greater than 5 acres and the up to 5 acres.
Yeah, I
You know, right in it from, you said that the last time there was the one change.
Yes, but you're correct. So I swapped the setback. So for on the smaller lots, there's the smaller setbacks of 10 feet. And the larger lots have larger setbacks of 30, 50, and 20. And then we also changed a little bit of language about the public amenities.
I think we struck it because it was under B. And then we made the adjustment. It looks like providing amenities that attract visitors and residents to the vibrant center. There was I don't have the prior one, but we struck one of those bullets
Yes.
out that made it so there was, it was like, it stated public or private.
And then under E3, it separated the sentences. I think it continued. The developments are also encouraged. We kind of shifted that.
Any other one? All right, I'm gonna open this up to the public. Any questions, comments on? What?
So, I really do recommend a change to language. The So, anyway, you
I'm not suggesting change.
Exactly. The existing max building height is 55 feet.
That's already going to be like the smaller lots. We're actually suggesting lower the possible height of 3 stories.
Right, we're on 5A, B, percent height.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
He wants to-
So 5B2 should be lower than 55.
5B, 2 to 3, A, 3 to 4, percent.
So yeah, so just to be clear, so the current existing ordinance says the max building height is 55 feet, 4 stories. The proposal is that that remains the same for large lots and that for smaller lots, it's reduced to 40 feet and 3
That would be
stories.
putting, by changing that, we would be putting more restrictions on the use of the property.
Correct.
We also can't change.
We also can't change it tonight. No.
Yeah, we can't, you could not do anything not put this in, but it would not change, you can't.
Yeah, no, I understand that, the nature of that. I'm just, the wetlands should be less restricted, but this should be more. It's just an interesting dynamic for me, but I have no objection to leaving it as it is.
I mean, one thing I will say is that's part of the taller building is the bigger setback. So it does, not that it makes a big difference there. Well, it is rewritten, but a lot of the stuff is from.
It's a substantial rewrite. I did do a markup version, but honestly, it was like not readable. Yeah,
What was the meeting that you discussed?
multiple.
So,
Been discussed for months.
yeah, since started in November. Yeah, every meeting's a public meeting, and I mean, there was a public hearing in
January
11th, yeah, that with all the notices and.
So those particular items were part of what was already existing. There is language that is in here that was added and modified that put more definition into like small scale manufacturing as an example. We went through multiple discussions, got a lot of input from other municipalities throughout the US as far as how do we make it so that it gives a little bit better definition to this particular mixed use district. But those particular items that you're bringing up in the dimensional requirements, that was already existing in the current mixed use.
Which was voted on by the town.
Yeah, and so basically, if, this goes on a warrant and doesn't pass, or we don't put it on the warrant, those dimensions are still there.
So we change things in any of this? Not gonna change.
We can't change it tonight.
We'd have to hold them, if we change these things,
Yeah.
essentially, that's what another public.
I didn't see that, I'll move on.
Well, I do want to say one thing though. We are not hamstrung by that fact, right? If we don't feel comfortable with this ordinance as amended, we should vote it down. So anybody's
Yeah.
opinion, is relevant to the decision-making process, right? What the whole, we can't change it, right? Your option is to say, you don't think it as written should be adopted. We take that under consideration and decide. But, it's not like you don't have it's not like just because you missed a meeting, you don't have a say. Think we can't amend it and then approve that version until next year.
Can we amend it at the town meeting?
No, it's not on the town, this goes on the ballot, it's not a town, I think, right?
Yeah.
So we're-
So no,
We change- so we can't change it after.
So look at it this way, we made modifications to improve other things in here. That particular item, if you would have brought it up at the last public meeting, we would have made that modification so that it was here.
Consider
I don't remember the notification. Maybe I got it.
I mean, I don't, we don't they don't mail out notifications to,
This one we do.
I got that
This-
right. That's what I-
for this meeting,
This-
was there for the previous meeting?
Yeah. So for the Bow Mills mixed use district, because there are fewer than 100 lots, they all need to be notified by first class mail for the 2 public hearings. So everyone in the Bow Mills mixed use got the
Okay.
letter for January 11th and for tonight.
by law.
Yes.
And we do this every year from October to like now. So it's just, that's when we review the zoning.
I guess the only other question I have, I'll move on to one of the comments that we made when we were talking about the whole project, that have certain industries, businesses that don't really fit well with residential. Is that included in here by our hearing, but are we gonna way to restrict wet lab type of, it may not be healthy to be close to people type of business in this area.
If there's anything, or that's an actual.
So I think that's a good question. The way that I read, I think it's a good test actually of the rewritten ordinance, because the biggest, that purpose is like a significant improvement, change. If we were to say, so the proposed development under section B will be judged on their reasonable probability of meeting the town's desired objectives. One, tax base in a town that reflects the master plan. So that directly as I read that, I say the goals and objectives as written in the master plan factor into our decision making. So if we felt like, I don't know what an example would be, but like a nuclear reactor there, we might be like, not sure that the town's master plan contemplates something like that. And that would be grounds, do we think, to say no?
Also, we talk about commercial district uses, and so some of the uses you're saying may not qualify for commercial district.
So the laboratory or research facility that is allowable is permitted in the commercial district. And then I think the other thing to remember is that there are other agencies at the state and federal level that regulate those types of uses and their impact on the environment, beyond what the planning board's role is.
I think what my concern is with this property, this is like a weird piece of property because somebody must own it, right? It's privately held. It's not the town's. But it feels almost quasi-public the way this, like the town is voted on this district, it's all applies to this area. So it's almost like the town should have some way to say, maybe is the wrong word, but should be able to say, that's just not what we're contemplating. And I think that's what this provision would allow us to do, but I want to kind of
I think that's the intent.
Yeah? Okay.
Mhm.
I think the answer to that question is not exactly, but maybe, right? It sort of depends on how the board sees a project that comes in.
Yeah, I think with the large amount of flexibility and control that comes with this for the planning board is big decisions, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's a lot of decision-making authority in the hands of the planning board.
So we can say no. I mean, that's the,
Yeah.
I guess is the big question is when, can we say no?
Well, if you can justify it in various ways, including the master plan.
Anybody else got anything? Want to add comments?
I'm sorry, Bill Rivers, Woodland Circle. Dumb it down for me. With these changes, it would give the planning board,
Yeah.
more leeway to, in this particular case, we're talking about this parcel over here, say, no, we're not gonna let the Flat League group do this many buildings, drill wells, that type of stuff. Is it gonna give them more leeway to say no?
I think it gives the board more leeway to say yes and to say no. So it gives the board a lot of leeway to waive provisions if there's some sort of an innovative development that doesn't quite fit the box of what might normally be allowable. It gives the planning board leeway to say, this is exactly in line with our master plan goals. This is exactly what we want to see. We'll bend this here and allow you to do it anyway. But in the reverse, I think it also allows them to say no and say, that's not in line with the master plan. It doesn't meet the purposes of this.
And is there any checks and balances with that?
There's always an appeal process of any planning board decision.
From a town person
Yeah,
point of view or from the platform?
Both sides.
yeah, any decision of the planning board can be appealed. Yes, you might have to be in a butter to have standing, but it can be appealed to whatever Superior Court or whatever it is, right? So yeah, but just to be clear, an appeal is not like a, hey, we didn't like that decision. And if it's like, if the board had the authority to do it, good or bad, that's not something the court typically judge. They would say, no, they didn't have the authority to say that, and then they would overturn it.
Or
So,
was the correct process.
yeah, right. So, right, which is like it's more technical than how you're sort of thinking of it. But yeah, this is a tricky one. One of the, I would, my experience was like saying no is always tricky because you are, this is private land. Right. So the easiest example is like a subdivision. Residential, this is easy, right? Residential, they meet the requirements. Can somebody build, 20 houses right next to you? We sit and listen to testimony ad nauseum from every single abutter that says, no, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Can we? I don't know. That's a tough, like, right? It's like not.
They're
an
meeting the
easy-
regulation and.
Yeah, you can say like, oh, well, the master plan this, like abutters that, but like what? That's not like an objective 1 + 1 = 2. That's subjective. It always is going to come down to that. So in this particular parcel is like really tricky, right? It's private land. The town has voted to give a lot of development authority there, but there's neighbors, right? It's like a valuable tax asset. It's like a whole.
And it's mixed use, so, okay,
Crazy
so what
situation, yeah.
proportions of things and what types of things work?
Yeah, so that's what I was asking, right? Is my question is based on no, like, can we say no? It feels like we could. I feel more comfortable with this than like some of the subdivisions we've even said no to. That feels a little more attenuated to me. But I don't think there's a crystal clear answer.
Well, I mean, among the things that we.
No, yeah, never is.
that we were
Never is.
making changes for was that small scale manufacturing. We realized like having a microbrewer with a restaurant, it couldn't come in there because it was considered manufacturing and we weren't allowing manufacturing. So that was one of the things that came to light
Yeah, it's good.
for this district.
And it's because when the proposal for the brewery and restaurant came forward, that seems like it fits exactly the purpose that we were describing here, right? It helps create a vibrant center and all these things. Yes, that exactly meets the purpose, but why isn't it allowed? So that's why we make changes to the ordinance.
I got one, Terry. What Sandy just said, it was a funding thing that was brought up, that was supposed to be changed, it was a bonding process for developers, that was one change, I think. What were the other big changes?
So we were talking about the TIF district, I believe. Is
Oh,
that-
that was applied to this.
No, so the TIF district is totally separate.
Right,
Yeah.
So, and Sandy said, what were the other, in this particular case, the big changes here that we should be aware of?
Oh, do you want me to give a quick rundown? Sure. So the purpose section was, a lot more was added to the purpose, explaining exactly the types of things we want to see and why we want to see them, and giving the planning board the authority to judge proposals based on these purpose statements. We added small scale manufacturing. We expanded the allowable uses to include everything that's allowable in the commercial district, plus a few more that are listed here. We split the dimensional requirements to have slightly different requirements for smaller acres, smaller parcels as compared to larger. And the previous ordinance was really focused on the Colby properties and one big parcel, and didn't apply well to the smaller lots in the district, so we tried to address that. A lot of the access and parking is the same, the building design, the landscaping, the lighting, those are all the same. The got rid of the requirement that the residential was largely on the upper floors. Based on what we've heard, it's not like not really commercially viable at this point to require that. It's so instead we've said that no more than 75% of the total floor space would be residential use if you have a mixed use development, so that we don't want to see 100% just like a residential subdivision. We want to see a commercial component of it to provide the mixed use that.
And that is part of the existing ordinance that we,
Worded
that we
differently.
don't word it differently, but the spirit of the existing ordinance is that
Yeah.
it shouldn't just be houses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it previously said that the housing needed to be on the upper
Right.
levels
Right.
and no more than. But,
Yeah.
I think that for.
Like no more
for
than
butters.
25% could be on the ground floor.
yeah, or like no more than 25% of the ground floor was
Yeah.
residential. And then some of the things that were required for every application previously, like the neighborhood meeting, the noise and impacts study, those are just required for the larger projects. Now we wouldn't require that for the small project. Those are the major changes. And then, as I said previously, giving the planning board the authority to waive any section except the permitted uses. The permitted uses. So if you wanted to do something that wasn't one of the listed uses, you would still have to get a variance for that.
Which that's when they go to the zoning board.
Yes.
Nail it.
So they like a lot of work and everything. You guys write the zoning and enforce it.
Well,
They
they-
don't, no, they don't really enforce.
Yeah, I would say they enforce it, but they would grant a variance. You know, when it,
Is there, last question is, do you have pre-change and post-change documents somewhere where we can look at them at the same time?
Yeah, they are. I can email you the existing one to
Well, I
you.
know, I just want to be vigilant so people can digest it. You know.
Should be on the website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on,
So
it
existing
is,
ones on the website.
they're both on the website. I mean, they're not next to each other on the website, but they are both on the website.
Got this, I go, well, I think that changes are really gonna have to look at it.
Yeah, I hear that. I did try to do a markup, but so much of it was like a whole section deleted. This one, it just looked like a red mess.
which, I mean, the whole, that mixed use ordinance is fairly new. Anyway, so
I was just
that
hoping
was
that-
easy to rewrite.
When was that adopted?
2020.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then it was
And then
amended.
this one word replaces.
Right, originally it was 2017.
2017.
2017.
Then it amended. I was probably.
2020 was a weird time.
I mean, and the property in the area still is, you know, as far as the commercial use and to get better tax dollars out of it. I mean, it's at the major intersection of New Hampshire. You know, that is one of the assets to the town. You know, and my hopes is that we do have some good viable business. I think a lot of it is still gonna be key on when the 93-89 project gets done. You know, one of the big hurdles and why Flatley pulled out is traffic. Until, you know, the board, at least as far as I'm concerned, isn't gonna get a major development unless they can handle the traffic. And traffic's already pretty bad, so that, you know, that would be the big holdup. You know, once, you know, the exit one gets redone and, you know, traffic's better there, it would, you know, I think even the neighbors are gonna welcome some in there because it's not gonna have that the traffic's gonna be, it's gonna be easier to get on 89 and to 93 and. You know, and I'm just hoping that, my hope is that a developer helps pay for some of that is, which would be kind of nice.
This is a subject, completely off, I'm just curious, when we bought the Hammond property years ago, the town did, is there any thought of purchasing this particular property?
God, I hope not.
The Hammond property was
To
paid
preserve.
for.
I mean, it's private land. It should be developed privately. All the town should do is collect taxes on it and hopefully somebody develops a lot more so we,
That wouldn't be. in
Collect-
my-
yeah, it wouldn't be in our yeah. You'd have to talk to the selectmen about that, but my opinion
Just a thought.
is, God, I hope not. I don't think we need to be buying land, viable commercial type land.
Then you gotta have more control of what you do with it.
That town shouldn't be in that business, but that's a
I'll
different
add
story.
One thing,
I wanna,
sure about it or not, but if a project goes in there, you should come in and voice your views, because we will develop our opinions based on what is said, what is presented, whatever, and we may think, hey, this is a great idea, you may not, and make sure you're heard, right? Because that's your opportunity.
Yep, it's good to get other perspectives, because it broadens our thought process, of how we're gonna.
Yeah, don't just sit back and say, they can say no, they'll say
and
no.
this is a great time for you to mention, there is a vacant alternate spot on this board. It's 2 Thursdays a month. Alternates get to vote, and make motions too sometimes. You know, we're just here to try and make the town a better place for us. So, we love volunteers. So with that, anything else on Article 17, the police? Seeing that, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
That was some good questions and discussion.
Yeah,
absolutely.
With the amendment to add 0 and the 0.5
amendment to add
acres. There-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I will say, I do think that we should add that as, because I'm curious why that is different on
Can you
that.
say that again?
The
For
stories.
for this, the number of stories, like, I don't know how we, or how it was originally come to that decision on that, but I think it's a viable question.
Well, I guess the idea was you started with what was existing on the bigger lots and then
Yeah,
said with the smaller lots.
I get,
we'll
I
go
get that for the
smaller.
smaller lot, I guess we didn't approach it that way. Like when we were doing it, right? We didn't say does that make sense? What do we want that? I don't think we ever had that discussion.
I think when we originally drafted it was, we envisioned commercial on the bottom. And then like 3 stories of residential
Residential.
above that, so that
But
was
if
how we
we're-
got.
But now that we're restricting that and just making the requirement not
Well, we're not
necessarily.
restricting,
Or
we're allowing
changing
more.
it,
We're
yeah,
changing
yeah. Right.
Right, but it's still, yeah, it's 75%, but it's not a vertical distinction.
I just think we should re-review it with that modification that we made. I mean, we did do that.
I mean, and I guess, I mean, and I'm all for reviewing and looking at it more, but like one piece I will say, you know, the buildings next to the bank are right up at 40 feet on a very narrow piece. You know, houses in Concord right next to, and it doesn't,
That one, the 3-story.
it's 3-story building, yeah. And it's not like it stands out like a sore thumb. I mean, if it was another story on it, would it really, you know, I mean, that's something to look at.
Well, and
Thinking about
that's
that.
true, and they're talking about putting a residential back there behind the church. Right?
There was, yeah,
When
that
they
was,
came
that
in
was-
here and presented that as part of the discussion, so. Yeah, I think it's fair to
think based on the 93 exit 1 timeline, that we probably have some time before
Absolutely.
anything comes to that lot, and I think that's good that we will do one round this year and
Well,
keep reviewing and thinking about it.
Isn't that lot for the churches that more than 5 acres? It's greater than 5 acres.
Yeah.
So that would apply to this. This is why.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
example. They may want a 4-story residential.
The other thing I will.
Scary thought.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
gonna say this.
that's why I think we should
Yeah.
talk.
The other thing to remember is that there is a floor to area ratio,
Yeah.
which limits how much you can put on a small lot also.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to like actually do like a dummy building and say, okay, how much could you do and what does that rate, how does the ratio restrict it?
Yeah.
All right, well, that was, the end of our public hearings. We got any old business? New business? We got minutes.
This-
With that, it's just always on the agenda as a placeholder. Thank you everyone for coming out.
Yes. You're welcome to hear us talk about our minutes too.
Just minutes.
It's the fun stuff.
Yeah, you're welcome to
welcome
stay.
to stay. This is the exciting part.
My January 11th minutes, just a copy of the.
Yeah, the front thing is labeled wrong, but the code there.
I know, it threw me off too.
I was confused.
It threw me off.
Yeah, there they are.
Gotta keep us on our toes.
The minutes have been way better lately. I don't know what you guys are doing, but like, I think I'll only have like 1 or 2 things. in
Right,
each of them.
yeah, that's what I.
I think you're trying to say good job.
Yeah, no,
You want to make a motion to approve the minutes of January 11th?
Was that a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 11th, 2024.
Second that.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed?
January 18th, minutes. Let's see, for line 35, and John, you can chime in because, it says, Mr. Pietrangelo recommended, this is making sure that tree roots don't encroach, and I think the idea was to recommend not planting trees too close to the septic
Septic,
system,
yeah.
so the tree roots don't encroach.
Well, yeah, I think actually part of that was about this, the type of tree too. I mean, this,
Yeah,
Well, we did talk about that, but a lot of it was the distance.
I think it was just the if you just change it to say recommend making sure that the proximity of the tree did not encroach upon the septic system.
Right, but that's why I said not planting trees too close.
Or not planning. I'm okay with either way, but that's what I was getting at.
Right, right.
Was the way that
know what it means.
I would say change it since it's my
Yeah,
Go
I think
ahead.
Jonathan gets to decide.
recommended making sure that the tree is not planted too close to encroach upon the septic system.
Okay.
Got it.
Anything else, Sandy?
No,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 18th, 2024,
Second,
As amended.
as amended.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I just quick recap. No.
Yeah.
At 1 o'clock is.
Yeah. And then the next regular meeting is February 15th.
So do I get, Ginger says I have to do the thing, like, do I get a form? Does someone send me the form to do the,
Oh, just like walk minutes and those.
you did? Okay.
Just
So,
have everybody sign in that's there.
yeah, most important thing is just who was there.
And if you're not able to go,
Make sure you-
Let me know when I get in the form.
That is.
it's 10th, the 10th, Saturday, the 10th.
Anybody need a
There you go, send one down. Sure. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?